Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Almost Sideways Movie Podcast. My name is Adam, and today I am joined with my good friend Larry. How are you doing, good sir?
Good. How are you? It's been a
Dude,
while, I feel like.
it has been many moons, it feels like, and this is kind of a fun conversation piece. So I wanted to invite another fellow fan of Ari Aster's Midsommar, and I think this is going to be kind of a fun conversation, I feel. So.
Yeah, whenever you get Ari Aster movies, I feel like no matter whether you like him or you hated him, he's a very divisive director, but all of his pieces make for interesting conversation.
For sure. And I feel like this is a great one not to just be by myself on. So I was like, I got to invite somebody else on. So I'm glad you're being a part of the conversation. And I would like you to share your links out there as well, so people can go and check you out if they've never seen your stuff before.
Yeah, so here on YouTube, if you're watching on the channel, I have a channel called Chillyboy Productions where I do movie reviews as well as some reactions to movie or TV. And then I'm also over on Instagram at Chillyboy Productions and on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I don't acknowledge that new name.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. I haven't heard of it. But on Twitter, it's Chillyboy YT.
Nice. Go check him out. He posts a lot of good stuff. So go check out his stuff and support him. So, all right. Ari Aster. This is his big follow-up from Hereditary, which a lot of people loved. And I was one of those people. I didn't love it as much as a lot of other people out there, but I still really enjoyed that film quite a bit. It was definitely a unique kind of a horror film. And Toni Collette was money, Oscar worthy. At least for the nomination for sure. But this is his follow-up, his second film, and it's Midsommar, starring Florence Pugh. Right off the bat, Larry, 2019 hits. You go in to see another Ari Aster film with. I'm assuming you really loved Hereditary. What was your first takes on the film?
Yeah, so like you, I really enjoyed Hereditary. It was one of those theater experiences where I was just kind of left gobsmacked. It was like a pre-screening, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is this?" So once I saw that it was that director coming back for a second film, teaming up once more with A24, I was excited because I went like Ari Aster. A24 horror is kind of divisive as well because
Correct.
they had a long streak of advertising movies as like straight up horror movies in their trailers. And then when you watched it wasn't your traditional kind of horror movie. It kind of fell under the blanket, but it wasn't really. And I think Hereditary was part of that. You know, Scream 5 made fun of it, calling it elevated horror. She said, "Don't ask me about the stab movies. Ask me about Hereditary."
That's good call. Good job.
But this was like the next step for that. And I saw that it was in the daylight. And I thought that was already such a cool thing. This like colorful, beautiful, broad daylight horror film looked awesome. The production looked great. I thought the trailers were really effective. So I was very excited for Midsommar. And I absolutely loved it coming out of it right from that first viewing. I don't know if I loved it quite as much as I loved Hereditary, but I have to say, I actually saw it more times in theaters than I saw Hereditary.
Gotcha.
I ended up seeing it twice, and then when they did the re-release of the Director's Cut, which, you know, I have here as well, got my little A24, like, expensive.
Kind of jealous.
Director's Cut here. So I went and saw the Director's Cut as well. So I saw it 3 times in theaters. I was blown away. I think I had seen Florence Pugh first in the family wrestling movie.
Resting with My Family.
Yes, I think that was my debut for Florence. So to get to see her do this, that was just a completely different performance in every level from her, was amazing. Once again, Ari Aster was able to bring out this, you know, fantastic female lead performance in his films. And it definitely felt like a good accompaniment piece to me for Hereditary. There's a lot of similarities in theme and ideas, but it definitely stood on its own too. So I loved it. I know this one was loved, I feel like, a little bit less than Hereditary by and large, but I was on board right from the jump.
Yeah. So I was late to the party on both of his films. I didn't get a chance to see them in theater, either just because I was like, I don't know how this is going to stand. And sometimes the horror movies that get a lot of buzz right out the jump, I go into them like, okay, this is going to be something that I'm going to probably really like a lot, but I kind of falls short. Another one recently is like Talk to Me. A lot of people really love that movie, and I thought it was kind of fine. I think the buzz around Hereditary was legit, though. I really enjoyed that one a lot. But when I was going in and finally watching Midsommar, and the reason why I really want to watch it was because I was preparing for our top 10 movies of 2019 for the podcast. And of course, I was like, there were some movies I definitely had to check off the list.
Yeah.
At least give them a shot, because I think they are going to be something that could be up there. Florence Pugh was definitely one that was the reason why I really made sure to watch this, because like you, I first was introduced with wrestling with my family, and she was really talented in the film and brought that character a lot of life in that wrestling movie. And then she brings these other characters, and she's such a dynamic actress, and her career is definitely different. It's a kind of weird trajectory of a film, because you got this wrestling movie that we get introduced to. There's like a Shakespearean movie as well. I think Beth was late. I think that was the one. And then she obviously is in Oppenheimer, a big film that happened this year, and she's got an Oscar nom as well with Little Women. Yeah, oh, be a Black Widow. I forget their big superhero role too. She's kind of blown up, and rightfully so. She is absolutely fantastic in Midsommar here. And I had just finished it about 20 minutes before we started sitting down for this conversation. So I wanted to be super fresh going into our conversation here. So again, my initial thoughts for 2019, I put it in my top 10, and I've top 10, and currently it's number 8 on my 2019 list. I feel like those top 10 lists are never set in stone. So going back and honoring some movies that are celebrating their anniversary, that's what I like to do on doing these retro conversations here. I feel like it's definitely better than some of my revisits. I revisited Joker, and I'm not as high on that one. So Joker moved down on my top 10, and Midsommar moved up. So I really enjoyed Midsommar's rewatch here. So I cannot wait to kind of dive into this conversation with you and kind of see, because you've seen the director's cut. I want to see what are the big comparisons, so that anybody else out there is interested, they can check it out for themselves as well. So, all right, I think we should start off. If we're talking about Midsommar, there's a lot of crazy moments that do happen in this movie. What's a big scene or moment that just really stood out to you, even when you're not even watching the movie? Like, you just think about sometimes, like, that's crazy that happened.
Yeah, obviously the ending is like the first thing that pops into my mind is the end scene. I think of Midsommar.
Yeah. Classic.
Florence Pugh as the May Queen, fully in that big flower gown with this big flower headdress.
Yes.
Crying, turning into laughter and smiles as, her ex-boyfriend burns. So
probably rightfully so. Maybe.
Yeah. And really, you have that image of just him stuck in the bear, just in general too. Like, it's those two images. It's his face, Jack Raynor, like inside the stuffed bear, and then Florence Pugh just like laughing and smiling as the flames go up.
And it's a great lasting image. They're like kind of like, what the heck am I watching? You can kind of see her descend into madness as she's going along in the movie, and then all of a sudden she's like, it's gone. Like, after the debris of the building has kind of fallen down, it's like all her cares are blown away now, it seems like. And it's just like, okay, now I'm kind of taken over by what the environment that I'm in. Essentially, it's what it kind of feels like anyway.
Yeah, so that's definitely one. Obviously, the other big kind of meme of the movie is the unison crying, like after she sees him cheating, and all these women just start like crying with her and feeling the emotion with her. It's just this like this. It's unlike anything really I feel like I've ever seen in film, like that idea of like this unimind emotion amongst a group of people. And obviously it comes back into that final thing too, because at first they're all like, in the final scene, they're all like crying and screaming because they feel the pain with these people. And then it all turns into like laughter and like joy. But it's just an interesting idea, and I think those two scenes kind of work in tandem to showcase it. Well, obviously the sex scene does as well, as like all these women are like surrounding these two people they've like coerced to have sex. And
So it's funny. I was like watching it, and my wife walked in. She's like, "I already know which scene you're in." I was like, that was poor timing, honey. I'm sorry. Anyway, we're gonna move on from that part. The scene that sticks out to me, especially rewatching it, I'm like haunted by this scene. It's really hard to stay focused. It's the first big ceremony our characters witness. We have these two. I'm trying to like follow along with the story and the different guidelines and stuff like that. He just got done explaining the life cycle of people with the spring, summer, fall, and winter time, and they're like, "What happens after 72?" And it's like, so you're assuming these people are probably over 72, kind of over the hill, past winter, I guess, and they do this ritual where they fall off this cliff, and was not expecting it in 2019, and I was like, holy, my mouth dropped, and I just kind of sat there and I was like, what the heck? And then the other person goes over, and I'm like, holy cow, like this is very brutal and probably more brutally graphic and shocking. I think it has to be up there with Ari Aster's film Hereditary, with that kind of shocking death in that film. And
gosh,
it's been a couple years now. We're not going to spoil it, but
yeah, the second guy, because he doesn't die, so they have to like smash his head in like as a mercy killing, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
And they overkilled him. They hit it twice.
Yeah.
It is quite a shock, and especially that's kind of a perfect use of slow-mo, because it's a slow-mo reveal, and it's like, oh my god, you feel for the people freaking out, and it's like, wait a second. And I love how everybody, it's kind of like the unison emotions. Everybody are like, they start wailing again, like sort of like, oh, they feel bad for when the guy actually didn't die, and then they get really immediately like, lack of a better word, pissed off at the Americans. They're like, didn't you tell him before you came? Like, this is what's going to happen. It's like, oh, I tried. Like, that's essentially what it was. But I can totally relate to like that freak out moment. Like, what the heck did I just witness? I witnessed something that was not right or shouldn't ever have happened, and I had to experience it twice. And these people in this community, it's like second nature. This, this happens all the time. This is just a Tuesday type of thing. So kind of really of a shocking scene that definitely sticks out to me is when I'm thinking of this movie, I think of that scene because I'm 35 and I still get grossed out by that whole scene. It's creepy vibes for sure.
They start you off pretty crazy in this film because even right from the jump, they obviously with her backstory, and they give us that visual with the sound. Oh, the sound design in this movie is so good. So they have the sound as they show her what her sister did with her two parents, and they take you through it, and you're just like, whoa, okay. And obviously that really shapes Danny, played by Florence Pugh, for the rest of the movie. And so you really feel for her as she has to watch these people do this and had no kind of warning, had no idea what she was about to watch. She's out here to try to take her mind off of her parents and what just happened to her family. And now she has to witness this sacrifice ceremony. Is the craziness.
And I think it's it's tough as a viewer to watch Danny's kind of really psyche get kind of slowly destroyed. You already know she's kind of an uneasy character because she's got this cryptic message, and this is probably not the first time her sister has sent a cryptic message like this before, and she makes that call to her parents, and come to find out, the sister killed herself and her parents, and so she's dealing with that, but with also a guy played by Jack Raynor here, who is, you could definitely see where, maybe there's some cleanness with Danny, but maybe she's going through something that needs that extra comfort and support there. And he is kind of closed off. He's definitely not thinking loyalty to his girlfriend. He's letting a lot of his, I think he tries to show that he's doing the right thing, but he has also his friends kind of say, hey, you should do this, or oh, there's this waitress over here. Not the greatest friends. And I want to speak specifically with Will Poulter here. that guy's perfect cast in this movie. That's probably one of the best casting decisions that Ari Aster has done, other than Florence Pugh for this film. Will Poulter has that total vibe. I could totally see him. I think he's played some. I mean, not played similar characters, but he just seemed flawless in that role here.
Yeah.
And he's also a recognizable face. But back to like the relationship with Florence Pugh, you could see kind of the deterioration of the relationship and kind of where her mindset is, especially when further along we get in the movie, and especially at that hour mark, she's kind of snaps. Like she wants out of this place. She wants to get out of everything here. And then the Christian stuff, she sees those looks Christian, like she sees it, like she's not blind.
Yeah, he just does such a good job of kind of setting up. Obviously, she kind of gets set up by the friend that takes them over there for
I can't remember what was his name.
So he's manipulating the whole situation from the jump, though you don't really see it, especially on first watch. You're kind of like, oh, at least he has one friend who's not like a complete ass. And it's compassionate towards this poor woman who just lost her entire family. But then obviously as we get towards the end of the film, you're like, oh no, he wasn't. He saw a broken woman who would fit right into the cold. So
pretty much,
that's why he brought her along. That's why he didn't give her any warning, because it just made it all that much more easy to manipulate her in that state to get to be the May Queen and get to the point we are at the end of the movie. But
that's Pele, played by, I'm gonna probably say the name wrong, Wilhelm Blumgren, probably. And he was actually really an interesting person in this one, because you're absolutely right. You don't suspect that he actually is really involved. He seems like, he's studying for college. He's bringing these guys back to do a thesis and kind of help out or kind of orchestrate this meeting here, and so they can experience it. And then all of a sudden this these events happen, and it's slowly revealed like he has to know a little bit of something that's going on, obviously. So and then this multiple viewings, you can tell like he kind of had a part to play to getting him there, or getting her there. So I've never seen anything that he's been in, and he only says on Letterboxd, he only says 8 films, but nothing that really kind of jumps out other than Midsommar for me. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really recognize him like I did now, especially a few years later. A lot of this cast is pretty well known.
Pretty well known, yeah.
We just have like even a minor role, like what's his name is now in like Gran Turismo and Saltburn.
Archie.
Archie.
Yeah.
This was like the first time I ever saw him, and then now he's popping up a lot of places. Obviously, as you said, Will Poulter. He's gone through a physical transformation. He looks very different now. He's gone through his own journey as an actor. Even his friend, the one who's doing the thesis, obviously has had a big career since
William Jackson Harper. I've seen him in a bunch of things.
A lot of them are blown up, but it's like mainly him, who's not really had much that I've seen afterwards. But it's a stacked cast.
Very kind of underrated young cast. It's only 5 years old, So it's like 5 years ago, like Ari Aster saw like these people are going to blow up in the next couple years, and it's pretty awesome to see. Yeah, especially when Archie Madekwe played Simon here. When he popped in, I was like, holy cow! I totally I remembered the character, but I never realized that that's who it was going to be. I'm like, dang, he was in Saltburn, and I loved that film for how crazy it was too. Gran Turismo was fun.
Completely. Again, quite the different characters, especially in Saltburn. His character is like not anything like these other characters that he's played at all. But he's attracted to some crazy, some out there films for sure.
That is true. And
interesting choices.
Gran Turismo is his most tame one.
Yes.
So with Florence Pugh here and her portrayal, what do you think? What do you think her like? Other than that ending scene, of course, like, what do you think your favorite scene with her specifically in there? Like, was there? So there's a lot of different like imagery, and how Ari Aster shot her specifically, she is clearly like the most interesting person in this. And I want to like we get some of her backstory and it's a lot of grief stricken, but I would have liked to seen something that happened. How was she with before? She's just the way Florence Pugh was able to like give this performance life, and it's just without even saying anything or with just having like this really like a ball of emotion type of thing. Like you could tell like there's something behind this character. I just want to know more. And I think that's just such a testament to her talent as an actress, though.
Yeah, she was really perfect casting for
Mhm.
this lead role. I know
Mhm.
we've kind of talked about like the Florence Pugh kind of almost frown face that she does so well. Like she's such a good crier, first of all. Like she just has the perfect face for that. But it's in this film. I love in that first act. I love her dynamic with her boyfriend,
Yeah.
Christian, because it just showcases like these really minor moments and she does them so well
Mhm.
where he passive aggressively does stuff like he'll say I told you I was doing this and she's like no you didn't actually you could have just told me right now what you were doing you said you mentioned that your friends were doing this or like maybe you were doing it but you never actually told me anything about
Mhm.
it but you know it kind of shows one what a shitty boyfriend he was because he'll like gaslight her like this is kind of where the gaslighting started in this movie, you know, it's a big opening our eyes to that term but it's
Mhm.
very true here where he just like kind of like gaslights her into her apologizing and saying she was wrong in these situations and I think she just does that dynamic so well in the early parts. And then one
Mhm.
scene that really sticks out for me actually takes place after she witnesses that ceremony and we just see her walking. Like she sees that yellow building off in the distance and she's just walking and the camera's just following her. And that's one of those moments where she doesn't say anything as she just like takes this walk and it's just so well performed that you just feel everything that
Yeah.
character's feeling in that moment.
Yeah, it's also too like when they first get to the community and they like, well, they'll take it and then you have Jack Raynor's character trying to kind of guilt trip. No, well, guess we'll just wait. And all the friends are like, well, we can't just do the trip at the same. We'll have different bad trips,
Yeah.
different trips. And she kind of caves into the wills of the group,
Mhm.
and then you just see her kind of sitting up, and you get and walking down with having this really like crazy trip. Like that's such a chaotic like segment right there with her performance.
Yeah.
And it's just like again just a testament to like how great she actually is because you feel everything in those moments even though you're not on what she's on, but it would be experiencing what she's on with whatever whatever she's on, like experiencing that would be an out of body experience. I would never want to feel that, but she shared with her shared
Yeah.
with us what she's feeling. It's crazy what she was able to pull off in this.
Yeah, she kills it.
She does. So having the, how did you think this quote unquote scares played on additional viewings here? Where you still had those moments of like the tense moments building up and being in a kind of a film that's shot in daylight, which is not normally what how kind of horror films do it.
Yeah, I think what works so well with this is just kind of like the psychological horror
Mhm.
of Midsommar, I think still works really well. And
Mhm.
a good aspect to it is the cinematography and the direction is
Yeah,
he's
good call.
so good at creating this unease with the camera. And the sound design is also just so
Yeah,
fantastic.
you mentioned that. Good call.
Again, I mean, it's just so good, and obviously in horror specifically, that's just such a genre that doesn't really get its due at the Oscars. Like we have a best sound category at the Oscars, and horror is like never nominated, but so often right there next to action movies and musicals. Sound is so pivotal to creating a good horror film,
Mhm.
and movies like Midsommar and even Hereditary, they just showcase it so well. But like his movements of showcasing the disorient she's feeling when she gets to Sweden just by like flipping the camera and we're like kind of turning upside
Yeah.
down as we enter this new arena,
Yeah.
if you will. As she gets on the airplane, that like transition is crazy when we go from like their
The bathroom
apartment
door.
Yeah, the bathroom door into the airplane, and she's there. It's just like, oh, it's so good, and it creates like this. It kind of keeps you off balance as a viewer just watching.
Mhm.
Um, so obviously, you know some of the big moments that are coming, like, but they're so brutal in their execution, like you said, watching people jump to their death and their heads like explode.
Floating, yeah.
It's not really something that you easily become accustomed to. Like, it's not as completely jaw-dropping shocking upon rewatch, but
Yeah.
it's still just like, oh
Whoa.
god.
From getting point A to point B and the looming doom and like the design of the score, the way it's shot, there is that lingeringness or lingering doom that you feel, and it's kind of like it feels heavy as you're watching it, and you kind of feeling the doom, the doom and gloom, as it were, that Pugh is like emoting on screen. So you're feeling all that and you're feeling the weight of it. And so it's, of course, it's like that tension. And then when they do the trip out moments with like the tea they're drinking and all the like all the shifting of the different the plants or whatever, that those are
Yeah.
become quite tripping. You kind of feel like disjointed from what's going on. It is quite a way that it's shot. So kudos to Ari Aster. Now, I've never seen his Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Beau is afraid.
Beau is Afraid, the 3-hour phenomenon that is Beau is Afraid yet. Haven't experienced that yet. How does all three films like compare? If you had to put, is this how does it rank?
So tough. It's
They're all
so
different, I feel.
Beau is Afraid is definitely last. Just decidedly. For me personally, it was definitely the weakest film. Unfortunately, I feel like, have you noticed that with these auteur kind of horror directors,
Mm.
the third film is really kind of like it's either like a nice pitfall or it's just a very different film, because we got that with Eggers as well, which I loved The Northman. So that wasn't like a drop in quality for me. It was just a
Yeah.
very different movie from Eggers' first two movies with The Witch
and
and
Lighthouse. Yeah.
Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And then we get this kind of art housey action revenge movie, which was awesome. So he's kind of ahead for me right now, just because he didn't dip in quality in that third film.
That's a good point.
Whereas Ari Aster, I don't know, Beau was Afraid just wasn't quite for me. It took those swings. I mean, we have a penis monster in the attic.
Oh gosh, please, I had no idea about that. Great.
Ari Aster loves nudity as well. He utilizes nudity quite a bit in these films. Also to a bit of uneasy effect, like Hereditary, the naked people that just kind of like show up as part of these rituals. He loves his rituals too.
Yeah, the naked rituals and the uneasy of seeing somebody else's naked body at times. It's always like, I think that also is like, oh crap, if you see a naked body, something's about to go down. That's pretty much what you feel.
It's horror, so it's like a fun kind of, I guess it's at least in his first two films, when it's much more blatantly horror, because once again, Beau was Afraid is more playing on anxiety. So if like if you suffer with anxiety, then I think it plays into that horror aspect more. But these first two films are at least delivering more art house horror in a way that delivers the kills, like delivers those moments. Like, yeah, they're slower, they don't have the jump scares, but we still get like horror moments that you're undisputably, this falls under the horror genre. A girl getting her head wiped off by a goalpost, or Toni Collette literally falling. And in this movie, people's heads exploding. We have a man hung up in this like little shed by his back with his like
chicken coop.
Like it's wild. So there's just like somebody's wearing Will Poulter's face as a mask in this movie. Like there are just straight up horror moments in this one that you can't deny.
A whole community of basically inbreeding, essentially.
I think
that's
also creepy. What this does, though, is that the cult aspect, like you literally are watching how people get indoctrinated, is what keeps it uneasy. And his movies don't rely on jump scares. So we have horror moments, but there's no real jump scare, because even the people jumping off of this cliff, we're building. The tension is like building, and something weird is going on. You can feel it. It's all building up, and then it happens, and it's not really jump scare. It's just like trauma.
It's something else that you don't like expect it to happen, because I wasn't, when I was first watched that, I was like, wait, what? Oh my good, that just happened. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there kind of in awe and disbelief. I'm like, okay, it's different. And that's one thing I like really hate about horror movies, especially ones that are early January films. Like, they really rely on those jump scares, and a lot of the big blockbuster movies do rely on the jump scares, because we all know it's coming. And it's not really a scare. It's just you played loud music at a moment, and then you like, oh, that's where you're supposed to be scared at, because you had somebody jump out with loud music. It's not.
Yeah.
You just know that's going to happen, so you're kind of embracing for it, and you can kind of predict them. So it doesn't really build. I don't think it. People go to see them, so I guess it does have its effect on some people. But
I
it's
think
like
the
it's frustrating when it's like, I think I
Yeah.
want to skip this horror film this time. I don't want to talk about it, but still.
The best jump scares are the ones that have like something that's there. So like maybe something like Talk to Me, I think actually has quite an effective jump scare early in the movie when, one person shoots another one.
Oh yeah,
And
okay,
then
yeah, you're right.
shoots themselves. It's a jump scare, but it's like it has that lingering effect. The worst jump scares are literally, you're like nervous going around the corner, and then it's your mom just making, lunch in the kitchen, and you're like,
Hi,
oh,
hon, you want a sandwich?
like she opens the door and you're like, oh, like those are the worst jump scares, because they are literally just there to like and then you're done, and they don't have any sort of like lasting. You want a jump scare that, sure, it like makes the audience jump up a little bit, but you want to think about it, or it has like a
A
horrific
lingering effect.
imagery, like
Mhm.
those are the good ones. But
That's a great point.
yeah,
Great point. Sitting here too, like watching this film, I think it's like a 2 hour plus movie, so it has some length to it, and it doesn't. From watching it now, it didn't feel like it was that long at all. I felt like, for being a movie that, I guess, quoting air quotes, it is a slower burn film, but it has a good pace to it. I'm sure, because you have the director's cut there. What are the big differences between the two different versions, and how how much longer is that director's cut compared to the theatrical?
to be honest, so I know I own the director's cut, but I actually haven't revisited it since
Mhm.
watching it in the theater.
Yeah.
But I didn't. It's really weird because I think it's 20-ish minutes. It's nears that 3 hour mark with the
Mhm.
director's cut, and what they add is just extra character stuff for Danny, basically. It's like a
Okay.
lot more small moments that just add up. So really the difference in the two wasn't really that big for me. Like sometimes you watch a director's cut and it almost feels like you're watching a completely different film. Like for the better or for the worse, you're like,
Mm.
"Whoa, this is like how did we how did we get from the director's cut to the theatrical? I don't understand." So it was a really interesting watch to see that. I think really the big difference between the director's cut and what the studio wanted for the theatrical was just time. I think they were just like, I think maybe we can tighten it up a little bit, because by and large it keeps the same format and the same feel and flow.
Mm.
It didn't really affect the pacing for me either. So it's an effective director's cut in that it just kind of adds more to her character. But
More to the character, but it doesn't really
yeah,
change the experience or
yeah,
change how the outlook of the original film. It sounds like I would eventually. I like
yeah,
the box art alone looks fantastic to
it's
have on a display.
beautiful.
So it looks beautiful behind your shelf, on your shelf
Yeah,
there. So it's something I would like to add and even check out, because I'm not opposed to effective director's cuts to it, if
yeah,
as long as they can maybe add little bit things. And watching Pugh do anything in this movie, or any really
yeah.
character that she brings to life, I think I'll be all on board for her performance that she just did this last year. I think that, yeah, I'm a bigger fan of Pugh's work than Emily Blunt's work in Oppenheimer. I think they're both really good, but I was like pro what Pugh was doing. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah,
effective
if it were
making.
up for me, I think she probably would at least be a two-time nominee, because I do think she deserved that nomination for Little Women. I think she's
Correct. Yeah.
fantastic in that movie. And I think Midsommar, it was once again, it was that big stretch where horror fans were really like championing. It was like Toni Collette, Lupita Nyong'o, and Florence Pugh back to back to back. And we were like,
Mhm.
what do we have to do to get these horror performances
Mhm.
nominated? Because they're so good.
Any closing thoughts or takes on Midsommar, and yeah, anything else you got for it?
Yeah, I think it's obvious at this point. One thing that has been really central to Ari Aster's filmmaking through all three of his films is something to do with like this parental relationship, specifically with mothers.
Mm,
It's not as much, but we even get like the Mayflower Queen is a very maternal figure in this. It's a very
mm,
maternal type of society in Midsommar, but it's obviously plays huge in Hereditary, and then it once again plays huge in Beau is Afraid.
mm.
So part of me like I think Ari Aster is really working through some
Mom.
mommy trauma, some mommy issues going on
Maybe
in his.
that's why I like his movies so much. Oh wait, sorry, I was supposed to reveal that. Anyway.
And I think that, as I said, he does a lot of thematically
Mhm,
interesting things that really elevate this. The idea of the relationship, even our protagonist, that last scene takes you as a viewer through like all of the gambits. You're horrified because obviously people are burning, but you kind of feel justified because you didn't like the character. The character's a shitty guy, but you know, you
yeah.
have to kind of grapple with it in your own head. And then you get to the character here. It's like, is this a triumph or is this a tragedy? And it kind of feels like both, all like wrapped into one. This whole story arc that Danny goes through is self-discovery, but she also loses herself to this cult, and she also kind of is like traumatized at the end too. So it's just all encompassing, and I think he did such a great job.
Mhm,
And building a film, as we've said, just from the look of it, just from the daylight of it, dealing with this cult, stands out from the crowd. It really feels like a very unique horror film in
mhm.
the overall scheme of it all.
It's weird because it's one of the there's several really good horror films that have good production design as
Yeah.
well, and I think this is one that, hey, I would like to go vacation at vacation there, just kinda take it in. Maybe not experience not take don't take any shows and just kinda just I'll stay in my cabin here, I'll be good to go. But it's one of those, like, he did the team did such a great job with the production, like, the
Mm,
costumes and everything
wow.
looks that it is some of the
Right.
best stuff that we saw in 2019. So, really loved Midsommar, and it's definitely one of my it's my personal favorite from Ari Aster's work so far, and I definitely do need to check out Beau is Afraid as well. Where does this one fall in your 2019 overall list? Is that's to put you on the spot there?
Yeah, let me look. I know it was real. I'm almost 100% positive it was also in my top 10. But
Oh,
looking at
that's
2019, I'm like, I know it was in my top 10 for sure. It was one of
okay.
the few movies I saw multiple times. If I
Well, that's
had
good.
to remember, I think it was like around number 6 or 7. It was like right in that
Okay, so
range.
it's generally the
Yeah.
area too that I had. So,
Yeah.
like, I've watched a couple things that well, this one stays and then Joker did go down, like I said, but, like, my top 10 right now, it's pretty stacked. It's Portrait of a Lady on Fire,
Ugh.
like, Joker, The
Is that your number
Farewell.
1?
No, that's number 10. My number
Oh,
1's
I was like,
Paris.
that's my number 1.
It's such a good movie, though.
I
But
loved
I
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
and, like, I get The Farewell in there, Midsommar's in there, this anime movie that I'm sure you've probably seen, Weathering with You, I just watched for the first time. What a beautiful movie. Then like the Marriage Story, then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917, Uncut Gems in Paris, like kind of the big players there for me. But yeah, it's such like a 2019 actually was a really good year for like some really big movies and under the radar movies, and so I'm
Yeah,
glad that I
just
was able to watch this one.
in a year like, oh god, I look back at 2019. What a year! Because this year, I have to admit, I'm a little bit underwhelmed with the cinematography of films this year. Cinematography is usually like one of those categories I'm like so hyped for,
Mhm.
but it kind of just feels like, yeah, it's Oppenheimer's. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, nothing else. It was Oppenheimer had amazing cinematography.
I think
Other stuff
I
had
like
good.
Killers. I've seen the Killers a
Yeah,
couple
the
two
Killers
times
had
now.
good,
Yeah,
but
they're good.
I even struggled because I'm in a few different voting bodies, and I
Mhm.
struggled with like my top 5 for cinematography because it's like I wasn't really inspired. And just that list you just went off of when we had like 1917, Parasite, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Midsummer, like cinematography was banking that year. Like they went off. But yeah, I think my top 5 was something like Portrait, Parasite, 1917. I know I had How to Train Your Dragon. The last How to Train Your Dragon
Oh,
was in
that's a
my
good one
top
too.
10
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I adore it.
Man, this was awesome. I really appreciate this conversation. You added some really good insights of stuff I wasn't actually thinking about, which is awesome. So I was glad you're sharing your brain on the movie.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, for going on these random little tangents as well as we went along. As we went along talking about Florence Pugh's filmography 2019, and then of course Ari Aster and this beautiful, beautiful film. I love experiencing other people who love it like I do, because as I said at the beginning, it always felt like everyone was like, oh, it's good, but it's no Hereditary. And I'm with you. I say I struggle so hard with those two because I do really adore them both, but they're like 1A, 1B for me. I don't know. I feel like they're both just so good. So
I think I've seen Midsommar more than Hereditary. So I'll definitely have to do maybe a more recent rewatch of Hereditary and maybe share a take or something on that Twitter thing. That I don't know. We'll figure it out. But again, thank you so much. Make sure you guys check the show notes down below, and you can find all his Larry's social medias and YouTube channel there. And definitely go show him some love, because he is definitely deserving. Because he does a lot of great stuff. So we definitely need to get you back on and do something again with you. Another movie conversation. That'd be awesome. So
yeah, thank you again.
So see you next time, guys. Later. Okay.